Welcome back to Fala Paixão. Today is a special episode because I have with me Tom Briones, and he is the owner of Briones Law Firm. So we're gonna introduce him and then also give him an opportunity to talk a little bit about what his firm does and what they offer. But the subject today is the differences between a W-2 employee in a salon environment and a 1099 contractor in a salon environment. There seems to be a lot of misinformation going around, and because Paixão hires so many different students and we train them all in-house, we want everybody to have an understanding of what the differences are. Without further ado, we'll get going. So Tom, you can introduce yourself and talk a little bit about yourself, and then at the end, Tom will give you guys more information about his firm and what they offer. But I think it's important for Tom to kind of talk a little bit about his experiences and maybe what brought you to doing what you do. And so we'll let Tom introduce himself.
Well, thank you.
You're
I
welcome.
appreciate the opportunity to be here today.
Of course.
My name is Tom Briones. I'm the founder and owner of Briones Business Law Consulting. Briones Law Firm is actually my dad and brother's law firm up in Farmington.
Okay.
So,
nice.
If you call that number, you'll get them instead of me. So,
Okay.
And we specialize in representing local business owners. That's all we do. And kind of my experience with that is I actually have an advanced legal degree in business transactions. It's called an LLM. So I specialize in working with businesses and growing them and organizing them, restructuring them, bringing in capital, things like that.
Okay.
And one of the things that comes up a lot with clients is when they're deciding whether to hire people, whether to do it as an employee or as an independent contractor.
Yeah, especially in the salon industry. This is a very touchy subject. There's a lot of confusion, so hopefully we'll get a lot of questions answered today.
Well, first of all, the most important thing to know when you are dealing with an independent contractor versus an employee is control.
Yeah.
Whether or not you control, to what extent you control the work of the worker.
Yes. And when it comes to contractors, you guys, this is part of the reason why I have Tom here, because if you're going to get into this industry and you're going to be working in a salon where there is no contract, there's nothing in writing, there's no mutual agreement between the person working and the owners of the establishment, you have to be very careful with that, because in court, there's nothing verbal in court. It becomes hearsay, and I'm sure you know a lot more about that than I do. When you have something in writing and there's a mutual agreement that is in black and white, everybody knows their roles and what their intentions are with that company. I think that's really where I don't even know how to word it. It's important to have that specific intention from both parties.
Well, not only that, I mean, it's not the intention, but that you have the correct, you have it structured correctly.
Correct. Yes.
Because even if the employee or the worker agrees that it's a independent contractor, and the employer says that they're an independent contractor, and the agreement does it, but if the agreement doesn't spell out the right elements, or if you actually function differently than what the agreement says. Let me give you a perfect example. Let's say the worker agrees that they're an independent contractor. The employer says that, or that hires them, says they're independent contractors, and then they get hurt at the job.
Yes.
And they are now unable to work. There's nothing to prevent them from potentially suing you for workers' comp benefits and saying the reality was I was really an employee. And I've seen that happen quite a bit. I used to be a judge at workers' comp, a pro tem judge. And you would see that regularly, and under the New Mexico statutes for uninsured employers, if they're determined to have been workers, you have to pay out of pocket.
Yeah.
And that can be significant because that's also medical bills, et cetera, that could be, your responsibility. So you want to make sure that the agreement is not only a good agreement that's accurate but that you follow it.
Yeah.
And so that's very important.
That's the big one.
And that's the big one
the big
because that's the one where we see people say, okay, well, the agreement looks good, but then
but
you
how
get
were they
into
treated?
You get into the facts and you find out that they were actually treated as employees.
Yeah. So with that, let's talk a little bit about what defines in the way that they're treated. What defines a contractor? What should they be doing and not doing? I guess. I mean, that's for a lack of better words.
Well, before we get to that exactly, I want to talk a little bit about the forms that people might find online to form an independent contractor. One of the difficulties with those is, are they forms built specifically for New Mexico law? Because every jurisdiction has their own law. So for example, California has significantly different rules and laws related to independent contractors than New Mexico. And the majority of forms you're going to find online are either California or New York forms.
Yeah.
And their laws are not our laws. And so if you use one of their forms, you might be adopting not only a definition that doesn't work, but you may actually have a clause in there that says California law applies.
Yeah.
And so it's very important that if you're going to be online, make sure you find a form that will work in New Mexico.
Yes. Or find a good local law firm.
Or find a good lawyer. But that brings up a point is I actually make a decent amount of my money from people who have found forms online, filled them out. They don't know how to fill them out. They don't know the law related to this. And then they have an issue come up, and then they need to go see a lawyer.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at these forms, and it's like, well, this
Wrong
is a
state.
real problem,
Yeah.
and it's going to cost a lot more money to untie that knot than it is to if we had just tied a bow early on.
Yeah.
But and the other thing I want to say is I'm not an employment lawyer. I'm not an employment labor lawyer. I'm a business lawyer. So really on the really finer nuances, an employment lawyer is probably your best bet.
Yeah.
But what it comes down to is mostly control.
Correct.
So the classic independent contractor would be, let's say your plumbing has a problem at your house. You call a plumber.
Yes.
And you say, I need you to come over. And they say, we can come out Thursday from 8 a.m. to noon. They show up. They make an assessment. They use their own tools. They've chosen how they're going to fix the problem. And they fix it, and you pay them, and they leave. That's a true independent contractor. An employee is somebody you get to control when they work, how they work, the parameters of their work, the hours that they work. You give them the indicia of being an employee, like maybe a shirt or a name tag or something like that.
And they're required to wear it.
And they're required to wear it. I mean, all those things kind of go into, are they really employees or are they really workers? So if you say, all right, you have to work, Tuesday through Saturday, these minimum number hours here at this place, and you force them to do that, and they have to wear this certain attire, uniform or something like that, that leads to more of a control issue.
Correct.
That could lead to more of a question of whether they're employees than an independent contractors. When they get to choose their own hours, they get to choose how they promote their business, how they pay their taxes, etc.
Yeah.
As from an employer's point of view, the safest way is if the worker has formed their own LLC, and you actually form a contract with that LLC to perform those independent contractor services, and then that LLC would pay its own taxes.
So in a nutshell, I think that he hit on the most important part of the difference, and that's control. In this industry, Tom, people, we're all used to having control over what we do. We want to come in when we come in. We want to leave when we leave. Making our own hours, and and essentially doing our own thing. And so when you're an employee, you don't have those freedoms. Like Tom was saying, you're given a specific schedule. You have to work that specific schedule. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. If you want to take time off, you have to fill out a time off request form. You have to give the employer at least 2 weeks notice that you want to take a day off. And a lot of the times, depending on how many people are already requested for that specific day off, they might very well come back and say, no, I'm sorry, we need coverage in the salon, and so you cannot take that day off. So as an employee, you don't have control over those things, but as a contractor, you do. You make your own schedule. You get up late and you want to reschedule a client, you reschedule a client. It is what it is. But
if I may, one of the things though is but don't confuse that with you as the salon owner can have rules that apply to your salon. You can have rules that say, you will not be disruptive to other people in the salon. You will, you can have rules by which you govern your business.
Correct.
And just like if somebody comes to your house to work on the plumbing, you could say, you can have access to this room, but not these rooms.
Yes.
You can, do this, that, but not this. So you can have rules that apply.
Yeah.
You just want to make sure that those rules don't end up converting the relationship into an employment relationship.
Correct. A lot of confusion lies in that in what you just said, because, and I tell my staff all the time, and I call them staff. That's just their staff.
Staff doesn't necessarily mean they're.
But the way I explain it to those that work for Paixão is, at the end of the day, there's a mutual agreement that we're both signing. You're agreeing to do this for my company, and as a company, I'm agreeing to do this for you. And I think a lot of times when business owners, that mutual agreement, there has to be rules. So I think a lot of times salon and people who work in salons, they think that, there's too many rules, and you're asking me to, have good character and good work ethic and all the things that, should automatically come when you're out in the job field. But those specific types of rules does not make you an employee. It makes you a civilized human being is the way I would think, who takes pride in what you're doing and has respect for the place that you're working at, because at the end of the day, it is a mutual agreement between the two parties. I'm paying you as an independent contractor to provide services for my company, and for you working here at Paixão, you're reaping the benefits of not necessarily having to market yourself because people already know who we are. Not having to worry about, having that overhead when you're trying to build up your business, essentially, because at Paixão we hire students and we train the students so that they are given all of the resources that they need in order to be successful. And then on top of that, they get to pick my brain whenever they want. And there's a lot of people in this industry who don't want to do that because they feel that there's going to be some sort of weird competition if you share your secrets. But my motto is, there's plenty of people on the planet to make everybody successful. So there's no need to run your business that way.
There are some free resources online for people to be able to kind of make that assessment themselves. Department of Labor has these fact sheets that kind of define how they see people as employees versus independent contractors. The IRS has some kind of resources on their websites, etc. I don't remember if the Department of Workforce Solutions does. And so it's one of those things that people can try to figure out on their own. Honestly, it would be easier to pay for a consult with an attorney and make sure that, hey, I've got this right. I've got this set up right. I know where my boundaries are.
Yeah.
This is how I run my business. This is how I do things, and
Yeah.
let the attorney
Decide.
decide, and make sure they go to an attorney who knows what they're doing.
Yeah.
It's like anything else. There are CPAs who are government auditors, others that are specialized in personal income tax, some that do nonprofit work. That may not be the best accountant for your small business.
Yeah.
Same thing, your neighbor who's a domestic relations attorney may not be the best one to give you advice on something like that. Just like I would not be the best attorney to advise you on, criminal stuff.
Yeah.
So, finding somebody who's qualified, it's worth the investment, in my opinion, just to get the relationship set up correctly, so that you don't get in trouble.
Okay, so then it's an overall combination as a whole.
Yeah.
If you're having meetings, if you have a checkout area and whatnot, but at the same time, you're making your own schedule. You have the freedom. So when you're reviewing those things, you're looking at everything as a whole and how you lay out your contract.
Yes, and it's like a spectrum.
Yeah.
It's like if you're way over here, that's an easy one. If you're way over here, it's an easy one.
Yeah.
But most of the world lives somewhere in
the
here.
middle. Yeah.
And so that is where we kind of figure things out so that you can craft an independent contractor that works best for your situation and your business, such that we can hopefully get you to where you're comfortable and operate your business the way you operate it without going over the line.
Yeah.
But the bottom line key saying at the end of the day is control.
Correct.
Who controls how that person does their work is overall the deciding factor.
Yeah. Okay. Well, there you have it. So yeah, and again, just to kind of recap on everything, I wanted to bring Tom here today so that we can answer the questions that I've heard over the years when it comes to the differences. And if you do own a business, I highly, highly recommend Tom and his firm because they understand what. For me, when I first opened Paixão, like there's so many questions and there's a lot that you don't know and you don't understand. So having a company that knows what they're doing and is able to steer you in the right direction is very important. And so one thing I have to say is if you're going to invest any of your money when you're owning a business or starting a business, is going to be to have the right law firm on your side. So.
You want a good lawyer, you want a good accountant.
That's right.
You want a good insurance person.
That's right.
To insure you. For sure. Those are the things that you want.
And you have to, because those if you're not going to take the time to invest in those things, you're setting yourself up to potentially fail because you never know what happens.
That the reality is that, I mean, for a lot of people, nothing negative happens. If you download a form from the internet and nothing happens.
Yeah.
Okay. If you never get audited by the IRS, if you never have somebody you're working with get hurt, if you never have a conflict that could result in a lawsuit, and that happens with a lot of people.
Yeah.
The ideal in the world of when those things happen. I mean, I'm like the divorce attorney who thinks that every marriage ends in divorce because that's all I see.
Yeah.
I see the 1 in 100 situation where there was a bad form, where the independent contractor gets hurt and things like that. And I just see where the risk is and the cost of investing in your business to make sure that your agreements and you understand your agreements and you understand the structure up front versus what the risk is.
Yeah.
I think it's
important.
worth it. Yeah, it's
definitely
important.
worth it. Yeah. So I'll let Tom tell you guys where you can find him if you guys have any questions, if you're starting a business, if you already have a business and you might have some questions and you want to utilize him and his crew. I'll let him talk a little bit about where you can find him, websites, maybe.
It's Briones Business Law Consulting. It's Briones. Our phone number is 505-246-0120. We are located here in Albuquerque. The website is www.brionesbusinesslaw.com. And one of the things that makes us unique is not only do we represent, all we do is represent local business owners, but we also offer a flat fee structure for clients that want continuing use or access to a lawyer. We offer a monthly flat fee where we will work with you instead of like on a per call basis or per project basis. We can just have you on a subscription model where you pay us a monthly amount, and whatever we need to do for you, we can do under that subscription model. We have different levels depending on the level of need. So that's one of the things that we do with a lot of our clients as well.
And you kind of stand out with that, because I'll tell you what, I mean, it took me a while to find to find a good law firm that I knew I wanted to use, and the flat fee thing for me was that's what really stood out to me, because just having that peace of mind and knowing that you can call whenever you have any questions, I think for me was really the deciding factor. I love that about your company.
Oh, thank you. Well, I mean, you could have Google be your law firm, or you can have an actual lawyer and answer those same questions. So, or you know, we a lot of times it's like, well, I heard this, and the rumor mill is not a good source of accurate legal advice.
No.
Unfortunately.
No, it really isn't. All right, guys. So thank you so much, Tom, for taking your time out of your day and coming here and answering some questions for us.
For you, Priscilla, no problem.
Yes, thank you. I really appreciate it. So that's it for our episode today. You guys can follow us on YouTube. There's going to be plenty of other vlogs coming up with different subjects and different interviews and whatnot. So if you're going to go on YouTube, just look up Paisho Beauty Bar. That's where you're going to find our vlogs. And then if you follow us on Facebook and Instagram, I'll post little clips of the video there as well with the link to YouTube. And then if you're looking for an attorney or for a law firm, I have Tom Briones' information attached as a link on here as well. So thank you guys so much for tuning in, and hopefully we'll see you again next week. Bye.